What I've noticed over the past 10 years, a guy who gets his marriage dialed in is going to be a more patient father. A guy who's got his marriage dialed in, he's going to do better. He's going to be more productive at work. Like a guy who's got his marriage dialed, he'll probably be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually more fulfilled and happier, right? And it's one of those, in our community, we call it the first domino that sets the stage for all the other ones to fall. So marriage is a big one. Not that like a lot of guys are like, so my marriage isn't great, but I am a good dad. Like a lot of guys will say, I'll be like, dude, that's great. Like you can still be a great dad. What I'm saying is it's just a bit easier.
Leaders are not born in a womb. They are forged through heat, pressure, and a whole lot of sweat. The Fire Forged Leader podcast serves the audience through exploring leadership at work, in the community, and with the family, using a practical perspective and real-life experiences from the host, Steve Baumgartner, and his guests in The Forge. Now, it's time to enter the Forge with the Fire Forged Leader.
Hey, Larry, I'd like to welcome you to the Fire Forged Leader podcast, where we're just trying to strengthen men just by every recording that we do. First off, I want to say congratulations. I don't know when your actual anniversary is, but I was just reading on you this morning, 2015 doing your podcast. That is absolutely amazing. So I'd like to congratulate you on that anniversary, whether it's been in the past or coming in the future, but 10 years is an amazing accomplishment.
Well, thanks, man. I'm just too stubborn to quit in April. The podcast turned 10. So, I joke with my 9-year-old. He says your podcast is 1 year older than me. So, but yeah, April it turned 10. So yeah, I've been doing it a decade, and I've been told this, and I guess I haven't really thought of it this way, but I guess it is what it is. Is like I'm considered an OG in the podcasting world, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I guess it's a compliment because I've heard these other terms called like pod burn, where people, I guess, just burn out and after like a few months. But I always joke, man, I was like, I had 10 ideas for shows. And then after that, I was like, all right, God, I'm on your good humor now. So whatever direction you want this to go, like, just go ahead and take it. And so, but he's taken the wheel, and we've gone for 1,400 episodes.
I love it, man.
Ride.
Of course, I've listened off and on throughout the years, depending on what's going on in my life. I listen to different podcasts, but you brought me a lot of value over time, and I want to say thank you for that as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I got to tell you, man, I love the title of your podcast. Like, that is like just like when I saw your email come through, and I was just like, what a cool title. Do you mind if I ask like where your title came from?
Absolutely. So just real quick, I was born, in a terrible situation, foster care, adoption, got into drug use really early. At the time that I was 22, I was looking 36 years in prison. So
What?
Yeah, throughout there, God, at that 22-year mark, God touched my life at that point, and I was able to, have that addiction plucked from me because of his grace. But I had to work through all those behaviors throughout time. So, there was some, abuse of my own children by me, emotional abuse of my wife. I was a terrible leader for a long time, but God kept on putting these awesome men in my life that helped me grow. And it grew me into the person that I am today. So Fire Forged, and then leader on the tail end of it.
Wow, man, I had no idea. Oh my gosh, what a ride! Wow.
Well, when you got some more time someday, we'll have to sit down and talk about it.
I would love to.
There's some very interesting stories buried deep within that.
I'm sure.
But today's about you, not me. So I want to go ahead and start this off, Larry. There's something that you said that just keeps on resonating in my head, and of course, it relates back to my own story. So you said on one of the podcasts that I listened to, or maybe many of them, that you became a monster to the son that you were meant to protect. And I want to just start off with that story because I think that's really a really good point on the origin story about how you took something bad and then, flipped over to that other side, and you're doing something really good now.
Well, thanks, man. It's actually, so I have a new book that's coming out, and it's coming out September 16th, called The Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood. And that's, if you look on the back of the book, that's the first sentence. It said, 12 years ago, I became the monster I swore to protect my children from. In a moment of frustration and weakness, I lost my patience, raised my hand to my son, And from that moment of deep shame and disgust, my journey of learning began. And yeah, so this was when my 17-year-old was 4, and there was a lot of things I think leading up to that where I was just not showing up very well as a father. I wasn't outright abusive, I wasn't emotionally abusive, but I certainly just wasn't there. I wasn't intentional, I wasn't purposeful, but I was quick to anger, quick to losing my patience and frustration, and just really did fatherhood from a distance. But I always made a promise to myself that I was never going to hit my children in anger, and because I was hit a lot growing up. And I broke that promise when my 4-year-old, who's 17 now, just stepped out of line as any 4-year-old would. And I spanked him. And unfortunately, I spanked him so hard, he actually fell and he hit the ground. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just do? And immediately, like, I was like, oh my God. And I like literally, I went to go pick him up and I went to hold him, like, my hands out, and he literally just shuddered like in absolute fear and just put his hands up like, please don't hurt me again. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is like literally the opposite of what I want to do and what I want to be. And that was the night. That night I went into my office and I did what every adult does when you have a bad moment. I got on Facebook because I wanted to like just not think about what I did. And
Right.
I'm just like scrolling through, and dude, I have like tears rolling down my eyes. And even my wife, who's like very respectful, very appreciative, never really disrespectfully calls me out on anything. She'll respectfully call me forward, you know, in a very loving way, never emasculating or anything. And my wife that night like looked at me, she's like, are you kidding me? Like, Larry, he's 4. He's 4. My wife, I've known my wife for 30 years. She never talks to me like that. And when she spoke to me like that, that shame and that it just became like a spotlight on that shame. And I knew not only I disappointed myself, my son, but her as well. And it devastated me. And I went into my office and I was scrolling through Facebook and I see this button in the left-hand corner. It said create a page. And I had never, I mean, it's 2012. Like social media was around, but not like it is now. And,
Right.
and I hit that button. And the banner kind of popped up and said, what do you want to name your page? And I just typed, I didn't even think about it. The Good Dad Project. It just rolled off my heart. Like you're a faith-based person, so am I. I believe that there was a divine, and there was a divine intercession in there. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, it's just the Good Dad Project. And the Good Dad Project was me. I was the project. I was like, I need to be a good dad and I need to figure this out. So I'm going to do this project, and this project is, I'm going to fix myself. And the reason I created that page, I actually did it privately. I never did it for a following. I never did it for, you know, like, hey, follow me. I didn't even know what followers were. I could care less at that point. Like no one even really, I don't think, cared or knew at that point. And I just started posting things that I was learning. I was like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to learn one new thing every day as it relates to being a better father, a more patient person, a better leader, a better husband. Like I started really looking at my life and I was like, what am I good at? Like, what am I pretty decent at? Well, I know a lot about exercise and nutrition. Well, I have a 4-year degree in that. So like, there's that. I'm pretty good at my job. I was in medical device sales and surgical sales. Well, they train the heck out of you. I mean, you can't even walk into an OR with a surgeon until you have like passed so much training and tests, and like it's like a 3-month thing before they even let you set foot in an OR. And then I was doing martial arts too. I did it for about a decade, and I was like, I'm okay at that. Like, why is that? Why I have a mentor? I have an instructor. I have a curriculum. I have people that I spar with. I go to a class like to learn. And like, what have I done? And being a husband and a father, it's been a big fat zero. It's been like literally nothing. And it's like, no wonder I'm struggling. And like, I don't know what it was, but that perception really, I felt like I stood in front of a mirror, and for the first time in my whole life, like I think a lot of guys think, well, I'm a man and I'm a husband and I'm a father, so I should be good at these things automatically. Like they should come natural to me. And if not, then I'm less than, I'm weak, I'm terrible, I'm this. And the funny thing, I really want to flip that perception on its head, because if you don't know what to do as a husband and father, like number one, join the club, but number two, I would ask you, like, what have you invested into learning in it? Most people haven't invested a thing because they think the perception is, well, I should know how to do this naturally. And if I don't, I'm just less than a man. And there was something very surrendering in that moment of like, well, crap, like, no wonder I suck at this. Like, look, I haven't invested anything into this, like nothing. And what if I did? Like, what if I just started learning? And that's what that page became, just me learning. And just, I would post something there and I just did it for my own sort of record. And it grew like this really weird following, like moms, dads, like just started following me. And I'll never forget, I think I had that page for about a year, and I was contacted by a local church, a mom's group. And they're like, hey, we want you to come speak at our next mom event. And I'm like, you want me to speak? Like, I got on the phone with this lady, and she's like, I was like, you want me to speak? And she's like, yeah, we want you to speak about, about what you're doing. And I was like, what am I doing? And she goes, we want you to speak about how to be a good dad. And I was like, you got the wrong guy. I was like, I'm trying to figure that out. She's like, no, we know. Like, me and a bunch of my friends, we follow your page, and you just completely rip on yourself all the time. And you're so authentic. And like, you're just like, you call yourself like just such an idiot and stuff like that. And like, that's actually what we want to hear. And I was like, I can do that. I can totally make fun of myself. But I spoke at that event. It was like 300 women. I had no idea what I was signing up for. I figured I was speaking from 20 women, and 300 were there. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and then they loved it. And that started spreading word, and I started speaking more, and I just spoke from my heart. And that's what the movement really became. And then after a while, I was like, maybe I should start a podcast, and because that's where I think I could learn more, like if I just talk to people. And so the podcast was super small in the beginning. Like, I'd never did it for a following. I was like, I just want to talk to people smarter than me so I can learn. And then it really got some wheels under it after like about a year. And I started like interviewing like celebrities and UFC fighters and athletes. And I'm just like, how in the world do people like of this caliber want to come and talk to me about this? This is so weird. Like, even guys like Matthew McConaughey, I'm like, are you serious? You want to come and talk about fatherhood? Like, it's crazy to me. But one thing I've learned over 10 years of doing this is, dude, like, nobody's got this figured out. Like, nobody.
Right.
Like, and we all put our pants on the same way, and we're all trying to figure it out, and we're all face planning every single day. But you know what? It's the dudes that want to get their hands messy and want to learn. Those are the guys that I just love doing life with.
So there's a couple things in that entire story I was taking away. Number one, God, if you allow him to, he will take everything that's broken in you, and you can lead others through it. It's been the same way in my life, but so many guys get stifled in that, right? I'll always be a bad dad because my dad was bad, or, whatever. So what would you say to those guys that are just kind of stuck and not ready to take that next step forward, or think that they're not going to be any better than what they are today as a father or as a husband?
So can I answer this two ways? I'll answer it very compassionately, and I'll also answer it with a bit of tough love, if that's fair.
That is very fair.
Yeah. So the bit of tough love is, if you want to fight for your limiting beliefs, you get to keep them. So if you're telling yourself a story, I can never be a good father because I wasn't raised by one. I was raised by a man who is impatient and abusive and all that. Well, yeah, that will be your life. Absolutely. Like, I was raised like that. But if you want to fight for something different, if you want to be uncommon, if you want to get your hands dirty and learn, it takes a couple things. It takes a surrender of the ego, and it takes a raising of the hand of like, I don't understand this. I don't have it figured out. I would like to learn. And by the way, when you do that, you give other men permission in your life to do the exact same thing. It's a very courageous thing. It's a scary thing. And it is the most beautiful surrender of power, I think, that a man can do, is like, I don't have this figured out. I'm going to do the most powerful thing, which is ask for help. When we do that, we're now ready to learn. So there's a story also, and this is where I think the compassion really sort of lies, of like, listen, if you don't know what you're doing, join the club. None of us do, like I said before, but we're all here to learn, right? We're all here. And by the way, when you're going to fall down, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to face plant. Like, I've been doing this work for over 10 years. I face plant every day. Like, my kids will tell you, Dad, I talk about my mistakes more than anybody, I think. But the good news is this: your past doesn't have to, it's not your future. So like, think of this for a second. I had on, I'll never forget, I had on Mark Devine. He's a former Navy SEAL commander. He wrote the book Unbeatable Mind, The Way of the SEAL. He's just a great human being. And his mindset is awesome. And I remember he was like episode like 30, or actually no, he's episode like 28. And I still remember it because he shared this story. I asked him a very similar question as you just did to me. And he said, have you ever heard the story of the two twin brothers who were raised by the alcoholic father? And I'm like, no. He's like, it's a true story. He's like, a dad who is an alcoholic. He was mentally abusive, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, just terrible dad. Two twin brothers raised in the same environment. One was insanely successful, was a great dad, had a great marriage with his wife, was very successful financially, great career, like really had his head screwed on right and did things well. The other brother, in and out of jobs. He was homeless from time to time. He had drug problems, alcohol problems. He had kids and left them. And when they were asked the exact same question, they had the exact same answer. They're like, why did your life turn out the way it did? both brothers separately answered the question very similar, which is like, I had no choice. I was raised by an alcoholic father who was very abusive, so I had no choice. My life turned out the way that it did. So you had one guy who had literally the exact same reason why he became successful, and the other brother leaned into the story and the self-limiting beliefs of like, I have no choice. This is my life because of how I was raised. But both had the exact same answer, but went in different directions.
Right. Did you ever allow it to hold you back in your life?
Oh my
You
gosh,
talked about
yeah.
an abusive father.
I leaned into that victim mentality probably well into my 30s. Like I remember telling my wife, like in college when we were dating, like I was like, if you want to marry somebody, I'm not your guy.
Really?
Like this, I'm gonna tell you, like I'll share a few minutes and just tell you how screwed up I think my mind was back then. But I think, you know, because of my past, and like sounds like you had a quite a bit of a past too. Like you really go into, I think, survival mode, and a lot of the things that you believe in, like it makes total sense to you at the time. And I talk about it now, and I'm like, I can't believe that made sense to me, but it did make sense to me at the time. So I told my wife when we were dating. We dated for 7 years, and her friends were starting to get married and everything else. And she was like, do you think we're gonna? And I'm like, probably not. Like, I was not even nice about it. I was like, no. I was like, I probably won't marry you because, you know why? Because I don't want to get divorced. I was like, so I'm probably not ever going to get married. And she was like, what about kids? I was like, I probably won't have kids. I was like, I have no idea what to do with a kid. Like, I'm not going to screw up a human being. Like I'm screwed up. I'm not going to do it to somebody else. And I literally told my wife, and then finally, like, I was like, well, maybe we started going through counseling before we even got engaged. And like, I was like, and I went through a lot of therapy myself to unpack a lot of things. And I was like, and I started believing that other brother's story. Like, could I go create something different? But I was still new at it. But every time my wife and I, when we were married, even before kids, we get into a fight, and I'd like run away. I mean, I would leave the house sometimes, like, and she'd be like, why aren't we working this out? I was like, because people don't work out their problems. And I would just like leave, avoid them, conflict avoidant, all those things. And there were times where like I was just very blunt, very rude, you know, to her. And I thought that was just the way you communicate. And then when I became a father, and like literally I wasted 6 years of my fatherhood life, just a complete mental and emotional mess, you know, and like just did fatherhood on a whim and by, you know, a wing and a prayer, which didn't work out for me really at all. And I was always pointing back to like I would screw up, and my wife was like, God bless, like what the heck? And I'd be like, well, see, like, look where I came from. Like, I'm never going to get this right. Like, that was like my mentality. Here's the crazy thing. I'll finish with this. My wife was like, you were never abusive though. Like, you would never hit anybody. You would never call us names. She's like, but you really weren't there. And she's like, you were kind of like into your hobbies, and like you were into work, and you were just sort of there, but you weren't. And I know what I was doing now, looking back on it. My mentality was, if I don't get if I don't get too close to this fatherhood thing, and if I don't get too close to this marriage thing, I probably can't screw it up that bad. Maybe I'll just sort of like dip my toe in it. Like literally I was a box checker. Like I would be like, yeah, I played with the kids. See, I played with them. Like that was like, I took them in the backyard and we went fishing in the pond. See, I did it. I'm a good dad. See? And like just things like that, to where like I was just such a box checking, like unemotional dad who was just like going through the motions. But the story that I relied on is like, if I try to do this right, I'm not going to get it right. And if I try to do it right, I'm not going to get it right, which means I'm going to screw it up, which means I'm going to screw them up, which it means this is going to be a disaster. So I might as well not try that hard, which is really terrible to think about it that way.
I agree. You know, now I listen to your podcast with your son. His name's Ethan, if I remember right. I absolutely love when you guys, you know, are on air together, you know, just the vulnerability that you have as a father, and, you know, him bringing something to the table and being completely honest. Oh, you can see that whole transition, you know, just by listening to the both of you talk. If you were going to, you know, just follow that journey along from the time that your wife called you out very bluntly to now the relationship with your son, what are the couple of things that you think that you did very well in that relationship to foster what you have now?
You know, thanks for that question. I feel very blessed. I feel very lucky. Luckily, I get to do this work, so I get to learn it like on the daily, and I get to implement the things that I learn. And I think that this movement has saved not only me as a dad, as a husband, but it's probably saved my life. Like I can literally tell you that I would not be talking to you today. I would have taken my own life years ago because I was just that miserable with it, not just with it, but with everything. But I would say the things that I've learned are around communication. And I'm going to get really, really specific because a lot of people always, you like to use two adjectives when it comes to communication, which is more and better. And that doesn't really get you very far. It's like, I want more communication. Well, it's great. Well, if you had more of it, what would you do with it? Or it's like, I want better communication. Well, what does better even look like? But I think what I've done with my kids is I've really lived by a quote that an interested dad is interesting. Like, how do you become the most fascinating, most interesting dad on the block? You actually become that, not by, putting yourself in the spotlight. It becomes by putting your kids in the spotlight. And what I mean by that is the spotlight of in their life, like let me into your life, like of what's going on. So I've always remained super curious with my kids. I have very deep conversations with my kids pretty much, I would say, on the weekly, if not sometimes the daily. We're really into asking, like our family, we're really into asking each other what we call generative questions, which are deep questions. So we don't waste our time with questions like, how was your day? We ask questions like, dude, tell me about the best part of your day. Tell me something where you absolutely face planted today. And what'd you learn? Like, what'd you fail at today? Like, what was a miserable point in your day to day? What was something that you're so proud of today that you can't even wait to tell me about it, right? But asking questions like that, where you're so interested in their life that you become more like the go-to and the guide. My main goal with my kids is I want to be their 3 a.m. call. And that's happened a couple times. And so that's been proven that I am their 3 a.m. call, which I will take that all day long. So one thing I've realized with kids is they have 3 needs as it relates to, us being their dads, which is they need to feel seen, they need to feel heard, and they need to feel safe. And if you can make a kid feel seen, heard, and safe. So like, for instance, when you see them, right, I like to point out very specific things that I appreciate about them. And I'll link it to like some sort of characteristic trait, so like if they do something, like if my son, like my oldest son, Ethan, you're talking about, sophomore year, he's a band kid, like, and he's in the high school marching band, and high school marching band kids don't wrestle. They don't go out for the wrestling team. And he decided on his sophomore year, he's like, I'm going to go out for the wrestling team. And I'm like, really? And like, he's like, yeah, he's like, no band kid, I don't think is that I know of, at least in my high school, has ever gone out for the wrestling team, but I'm going to do it. And so like things like that, I'll be like, dude, like the fact that you're doing that takes so much courage, right? And like, I like to always point it to something like that's courageous, or that takes integrity, that takes bravery, right? Always linking a decision that they're making, values, to characteristics. Yeah. So it's like, that's the scene part. Hearing them, I think when they're talking, a dad really a lot of times needs to shut down. I'm going to solve all your problems, and I'm going to give you all my wisdom, and I'm going to give you all the advice that you possibly need. And I think what a dad can really do is turn on his listening ears and validate their emotional experience, like whatever it is that's going on. So like if my son comes home and he, is frustrated about something, and even if I have the answer, like sometimes I'll ask him, I'm like, hey man, like I'm just more than happy just to sit here and listen to you. And if you want to vent and talk about this stuff, like I'll just sit back here and listen. And if you need that, I'm here on that. That's what this is all about. And if you want advice, or if you want my opinion, I'll give you that too, but I want your permission for that. And they'll tell me, they'll tell me to be like, and they'll tell me like, I really need advice, or they'll be like, I just need you to listen. But either way, I validate what they're feeling. So I'll say something along the lines of like, dude, that sounds insanely frustrating. Like I know full well what you're going through. I know what that's like. Tell me more about that. What's going on? And when a kid feels really, really heard, and when you can link what they're feeling to to the emotion that they're probably feeling, they feel really heard, right? So that's being heard. And then the safe thing is, I love when my kids come to me with really, really heavy things that they've done or things that they're going through, because that is a cue for me. And one of my most favorite things is when Ethan tells me, he's like, I need to tell you something, and I need you not to be mad. And that's kind of our code. Our code is that he prepares me. He's like, I got something really big to tell you that I'm scared to tell you, and I need you to take it calmly. And I do. I've always told him, I was like, if you tell me that, I will remain calm no matter what it is you're going to tell me. And what I'll do is I'll applaud them and praise them for courage. Like, dude, like that took a lot of courage to tell me. Like I would have never said that to my parents. So, but then I'll just start asking questions, and we'll go through conversation about it. Right. But the safety button, I think, is the most powerful button for kids, because a kid think about it. Like when you and I grew up, like I remember going through experiences, whether it was my grades or like wrongdoing or whatever. And I would be like, my mom can never find out about this. If she does, I'm dead. Right. And I always want my kids to be like, this just happened. The very first person I'm calling is my dad, because he's the guy, he's the guide, he's calm, he's patient. Like he'll walk me through this. And that's what I've wanted. So that's what I've cultivated over the past 10 years. At least I like to think so. I'm sure there are things that my kids would be like, I can never tell dad that. I'm sure there is. But
oh yeah,
I like to say for the most part, maybe we're more of the 80-20 rule, hopefully. But yeah, that's how.
So I love that scene, Heard and Safe. And, that is the relationship that we all desire with our children. It's probably the most awkward relationship to foster. So take me, I got 8 kids, 5 of them are already adults, but let's talk about those.
Did you say 8 kids?
8 kids, yeah.
You have 8 kids?
8 kids, yep.
Your story just keeps getting crazier to me. Holy cow, man. Like, holy cow.
Once again, we'll have to sit down and talk about it. It goes pretty deep and wide, but I have 3 little ones at the house. This is going to blow your mind even more, Larry, but the youngest one is 4 and the oldest one's 31.
Oh my God.
I got 2 grandkids as well at 50.
You're a grandpa?
I am.
You are not.
So God just keeps on blessing me, man. I mean, that's all that I can say. I did a lot of bad things with my older kids, and I'm repairing those relationships daily. My 31-year-old and I, we didn't talk for years and years and years. And, over the last couple of years, we got to reconnected on a jujitsu mat, right? So that's awesome. He actually took my spot as a kids coach when I left Kansas City and came up to Nebraska. So anyways, lots to that story. Get back to my question. I got these 3 little kids at home, 4, 6, and 8, right? And say that I'm in that spot where I just don't feel like I'm connecting with my kids. They are distant. I've been not present as you were. And I want to foster this relationship of the seen, heard, and safe. What would you advise me on step 1? How do I get started out of the gate?
I always like doing activity with my kids first. Like for instance, anytime I want to be connected to my kids, especially that age, like, cause I've got a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and especially like with my 9-year-old, like the keys to his heart is doing something with him. And I'm not talking about like taking him to Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. It's like really entering like their world. So like right now, my 9-year-old, like he's obsessed with Taekwondo. Like we've tried, I think, just about every sport with him, and he's like, yeah, maybe. But Taekwondo, he is just like, he will like literally, I'll find him in his room practicing by himself. So like, I'll be like, hey, like I've noticed, right? So like being really observant of their world, right? I've noticed that you love Taekwondo. And when I see you do Taekwondo, like I'll literally tell him this, right? And it goes to the scene thing. When I see you do Taekwondo, you come to life, man. Like I see you brighten up. You're so focused. You just really want to do it. Like, what would it look like and I did martial arts for a long time myself. I was like, what would it look like if I practiced with you? Would you be cool with that? And they're like, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. Right. And like, I would love that. I'd be like, well, I would too. I was like, so like, what if like 30 minutes, 3 times a week, like when you're not on the nights you don't have class, like what if you and I go out, we hit the pads, like we do your form, like we practice your punches and stuff like that. And they're just, kids spell LOVETIME, right? So the time, but I think most specifically, a lot of guys will be, it's kind of like more and better, right? I want more time with my kids. I want better time with my kids. I think the way to a kid's heart is entering their world of what's most important and meaningful to them, with them, right? Like a lot of guys want to do the opposite. Like, hey, let me bring you into my world, which I think we should, to some degree, but I also want to enter into their world. So it's like, yeah, I would love to do Taekwondo with you. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, like, so Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, we'll do it together. And we do. So what we do is like, we'll practice for like 15 minutes. I'm like, all right, man, come over here. Let's talk for a minute. And like, we'll just like talk, and like, we'll link back like certain things that he's doing with like work ethic and effort and integrity and stuff like that. And then I'll ask him questions about his day and stuff like that. And what, like, he just gobbles up that one-on-one time. And it's so crazy connecting, man. And like for my 11-year-old, dude, I hate video games. I loathe them. Like, give me a Nintendo where we had the A, B, and that. Like, but all this, like the Xbox with like 12 different buttons, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm just like I'm lost, man. But like my 11-year-old, dude, he loves playing video games with me, and I'm like, and he's like, you want to play video games with me? And I'm like, no. But I'll be like, yes. Like I say yes, but I'm just like in the back of my mind, I'm like, the last thing I want to do is play video games. I hate video games, but like I'm like, yeah, let's play some video games together. And while we're playing video games, like I ask them questions. Like, I'm like, dude, like, what, like, who'd you sit with lunch with today? Like, at school, stuff like that. I'd be like, what was something funny that happened to you today? And like, they just open up, right? And when we're doing an activity, here's the other thing I've noticed too. When we're doing a shared activity together that's really, really connecting, that intimidation factor for them goes way down. So like, for instance, here's a great example, and I'll just kind of close with this. Anytime I want to talk to my kids about something serious, like it could be something big, right? I always take them to do an activity first. Like for my 17-year-old, it's like, hey, you want to go to the gun range and shoot some guns for a little bit, and then we'll go out to dinner? And he's like, yeah, it's like, but if I try to take him out to dinner first and we do the nose to nose, toes to toes, we have this big serious conversation, he's probably not going to open up nearly as much as if like his endorphins are going and we do something like go shooting the guns at a target for a little bit, and he's like lit up, and then we go out to dinner and he's lit up, and we're like, then we have a tough conversation, and he's way more likely to engage in it and feel pretty good about it if we do some sort of shared activity first. So I'm a huge fan of connected shared activities with the kids.
Absolutely. And I think that relates to adults too. I do some activities with men, and I always get them out on a ruck or something first so that we can talk afterwards. Women, it just looks different, right? A little bit of cuddling first, then you can talk.
Yeah, that's right. We have 8 kids, so like, I don't know how much cuddling you're doing, but
Very, very good point. Hey, man, I want to get into this book and something that, you talk about Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood in the title, but you have a subtitle that talks about marriage. And I want to start there with why that is the lead for your book.
So, what I've noticed, so my whole platform is the dad edge, right? But what I've noticed over the years is most men come to our ecosystem because they want a better marriage. Because I really think, like, if you really get what I've noticed over the past 10 years, a guy who gets his marriage dialed in is going to be a more patient father. A guy who's got his marriage dialed in, he's going to do better. He's going to be more productive at work. Like a guy who's got his marriage dialed, he'll probably be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually more fulfilled and happier. Right. And it's one of those, in our community, we call it the first domino that sets the stage for all the other ones to fall. So marriage is a big one. Not that like a lot of guys are like, so my marriage isn't great, but I am a good dad. Like a lot of guys will say, I'll be like, dude, that's great. Like you can still be a great dad. What I'm saying is it's just a bit easier, like when that's locked in. So like the funny thing is like most of my one-on-one clients always come to me for marriage help. Like that's what I coach to the most. And that's what I love the most. I actually think that I know more about being a husband than I know about being a dad, even though we're the dad edge.
Should we validate with your wife?
Exactly. Yeah. She's actually coming on. She's doing the first podcast with me. She's doing 4 shows with me in August.
Oh, nice.
She's coming on the pod finally after 10 years, but yeah, she'll validate some of that stuff. And she's also going to validate a lot of really bad things too. So, but the marriage thing, like, I think it's another thing. It's another relationship in our life that, quite frankly, it's not like we go to marriage school. Like they don't teach you relationship dynamics in high school or college. Like they don't teach you that a woman has the actual same needs as your kids. It's seen, heard, and safe. And our needs as men is to be respected, appreciated. We need physical affection. So when both sides of the marriage knows at least the needs of the other person, because what we usually like to do is we want to fulfill the other person's perspective needs with our own. So like that's why a guy will be respectful of a woman. He'll compliment a woman, and then he wants to put his hands all over her, right? But that's not what a woman needs. A woman needs to feel seen, heard, and safe. And what a woman will do is she'll emotionally help a guy. She'll listen to him and that kind of thing. But he's like, I want to be respected. I want to be appreciated. I want you to put your hands on me. So going back to this marriage thing, when it comes to being connected, when it comes to communication, when it comes to alignment, there are so many skills that I think both parties should learn to cultivate a really good marriage. And once both parties have learned those and you've implemented those, I think marriage becomes more of an adventure, becomes more of a journey. You're still going to have speed bumps, but if you've got the skills, the speed bumps, are not going to be as harsh, and the valleys that you go through as a marriage are not going to be as long. It's just like anything else. I mean, you did jujitsu. Like I always like to compare the jujitsu guys to marriage, where it's like, hey, you do jujitsu for how long? And like, have you ever done a tournament? And guys are like, yes or no. And I'm like, would you ever do a tournament before you ever even rolled, before you even went to a jujitsu studio? And they're like, of course I wouldn't. I'm like, well, why not? They're like, because I get killed. Like, I have no skills. And I'm like, do you believe though? Like, here's the crazy thing. You walked down the aisle, you said, I do. Did you ever learn anything before you got married about connecting to your wife or communicating with her or anything like that? And they're like, oh my God, no, I didn't. And I'm like, you just entered into a jujitsu tournament without ever rolling. Like, that's literally the comparison. But once we learn, like once you go in the studio and you learn those reps and you learn the rear naked choke and you learn the triangle and you're like, oh, maybe I can navigate this a little bit better. And you do a tournament, you might do pretty well. And that's the same thing with marriage.
I'd probably suck more jujitsu than marriage.
I don't know, man. You look like an intimidating figure to me. Like, I would hate to roll with you. You'd probably kill me.
Well, God gave me this body, right? I mean, 6'3", 240 pounds, that doesn't necessarily mean that I got skills.
I'd be dead. Like, it's just, you just probably step on me and I'd die. So yeah.
It's interesting because, I've been in contact with a lot of Navy SEALs too. And just being around those guys, I think my stature's different, right?
Yeah.
But, I'll be at a hotel and someone will, hey, were you in the military? No, I was closer to jail at that time.
I went through basic training in a cell that was 10 by 10.
Yeah, there you go.
That would scare people.
So what, you talk about marriage right in the subtitle. What else is in this book that people can expect to get out of it?
So the book is divided up into 4 parts. It's the drift, marriage, fatherhood, leadership. So a lot of guys are like, what's the drift? And when I explain the drift, I think a lot of people really understand it. So the drift is what I would call the wash, rinse, repeat. It's every day kind of feels a little bit like Groundhog Day to a man, right? Like he goes to work, he gets up, he goes to work, comes home. He's like, he's in his life, he's in his marriage, but he feels that there's like, isn't there supposed to be more here? Like he's asking himself those questions. Like, wasn't there supposed to be more to this? Like, why am I not insanely fulfilled in these areas with my family? Like I want to be like that. Here's what I'll tell you. The good news about men is that there's no shortage of, I think, especially for our generation, of guys who have a deep desire to want to connect with their wives, a deep desire to want to, connect with their kids. I mean, dude, we look at this, the Little League stands. We have more dads at sporting events and guys will take off in the middle of the day to go to the kids' field trips now. And so, like, that was unheard of when you and I were little, right? So dads are like, oh, no, not on my watch. I really want to be a part of this. The gap that I've seen is guys are like, I don't know exactly what this looks like though. And what it feels like to them is I keep going to these jujitsu tournaments, getting my rear end handed to me. I really love jujitsu, but I keep getting beat. Like, why is that? But I'll keep showing up to these tournaments. That's what the drift kind of feels like. It's like I'm going through the reps. I'm working my ass off. I don't know if what I'm doing is actually working. I don't feel insanely connected to my kids. I want a better connection with them. My wife and I, we kind of sort of feel like roommates, like we're spinning in different orbits. Isn't there more? Like they always feel like, I've heard this, and I think this really lands with men. I feel like I'm leaving 50% of my potential on the table, and I don't know how to get it. That's the drift. And the drift usually, and this is the most disruptive thing, this is where I caution men. Like, how often do you go to the dentist? Probably every 6 months, right? You don't wait till your teeth start to fall out. Like, you go get your oil changed every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. You don't wait for that light to come on. You don't wait for your engine to fall out. Marriage and your family is the exact same way. So you don't wait for a crisis. And unfortunately, what most men will do is they'll wait for that crisis. Like, I can't even tell you, Steven, like how many emails I get on a monthly basis of like, dude, I don't know what to do. My wife, after 5 years, just told me she doesn't want to be married to me anymore. I had no clue. I didn't see it coming. What I'll tell you is the warning signs are there. They are there. You just have to know what they are. And when you don't, that's the drift. And guys usually wake up and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to do something now. Unfortunately, sometimes, not saying every situation is too late, but don't wait until it's too late. So that's the drift. And then marriage, I go into a lot of the different skills that we teach in the Dad Edge, as far as like connection, communication, intimacy, validation, all of these different, skills that are so important in your marriage. And then the third part is fatherhood, everything that we talked about, like raising, strong, courageous sons, raising strong, confident daughters, being more patient with them, how to communicate with kids, how to create environments of psychological safety with your kids where they'll tell you things, how to be your kid's 3 a.m. call. And then the last one is there's 10 pillars of leadership as it relates to being a father. And that's the last section is leadership.
So that's pretty comprehensive for sure. Now, I know you got a hard stop, Larry. I could talk forever, man. I mean, we align so much on values. But if there was, one thing that you'd wish for the guys to take away from this podcast today, what would it be?
I would say the one thing is I'll share this bit of tough love for you. If you don't know what you're doing and you feel like you're in that wash, rinse, repeat, that drift, here's my advice. Do not wait for a crisis to get help. And when I say get help, I'm not talking about therapy. I'm not talking about but at least start listening to podcasts, right? Start, maybe pick up the book. That might help. But here's what I'll tell you. All the podcasts in the world and all the audiobooks in the world and all the books in the world and the YouTube videos, they're meaningless unless you actually implement things and unless you actually get your hands dirty. It's kind of like I spent 20 years in medical device sales. And so I worked with surgeons, and surgeons spend the first 4 years of their education in a classroom, right? So it's like content. It's kind of like us listening to podcasts. They don't bring that knowledge to life until they go into their residency and fellowship, and then they're side by side with the attending surgeon, and then they're doing whatever surgery that they've been trained in. Like I worked in orthopedics. So hey, this is going to be your first total knee. It's your first right. rodeo outside the classroom. So that's what we do in our community is we put you basically in the jiu-jitsu studio, right? We help you roll, it's like, or we put you in the OR, whatever you want to call it, right? And we help you roll. And then you go implement these things. So I caution guys to be like, yeah, go listen to a podcast because information usually doesn't really result in anything except for you just have more awareness of where your holes are at. It's not until you get into community, in my opinion, to where you're doing life with other guys that have a shared vision and you're learning skills with them and you're doing things differently. And the final thing I'll say is this: you should always have 3 people in your life, always, as a man. Someone who's leading you, someone who's mentoring you, right? Who's teaching you these things. Then you need a person to go do life with, someone to practice with, someone to kind of spar with, right? It's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. And then the third person is you need to be teaching somebody and mentoring somebody yourself. So I love speaking to men like you, right? Who have 8 kids and kids you're a man who has kids older than me. So I'd be really keen to be like, hey, you're talking to a guy who is brand new to raising an adult child. My wife and I were talking about this last night. I was like, this is totally new ground for me. Right. But I could learn a ton from you, just in your experience alone. I could learn hey, what do the next 10 years look like for me? And what do I need to be doing? Right. So you would be mentoring me like that. But the cool thing is I can help guys who have kids who are 18 and younger. So I need to be mentoring those guys, and it helps me solidify all those lessons that I've learned, and it helps me be a better person and implementer myself. I think at the very least, all men need those 3 men in their lives. I can't send them out until September, but you can pre-order the book, and I've added some bonuses to it. I have 2 courses that are really, really popular, and both courses are $500 a piece. One is Creating More Patience. It's where I teach 6 skills. It's a 45-minute course, teaches 6 skills on how to be a more patient, resilient, calm father, even in the heat of chaos. So that's course number 1. And course number 2 is How to Create an Extraordinary Marriage. And I teach you 11 skills in that course, and they're actually in the book as well, but I can't send the book out till September. So anybody who buys the book before then can pre-order the book. I'm giving those 2 courses away. And the way to do that is go to thedadedge.com/legendary book, all one word, thedadedge.com/legendary book. If you buy the book for $28, you'll get free access to those 2 courses. So, and then after September 16th, probably the easiest place to find it is Amazon. Yeah, thank you for having me. I would love to hear more about your story. And by the way, I got to tell you guys that for everybody listening to Steve's podcast here, this man obviously has an incredible story. He does this podcast from his heart. Stop what you're doing right now on the end of this podcast. Go leave this man a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast, whether it's on Apple, whether it's on Spotify. You have no idea how much these reviews help out us podcasters because we put this content out for free. So if you're loving Steve and you love his show, which if you love him as much as I do, go leave him a 5-star review. He does this from his heart.
You have just experienced the heat and pressure of the Forge. Remember, words without action are meaningless. Now, after the heat of the Forge, shape your thoughts, quench your brain, then put your new tools to use, adding to your leadership. Tune in next week for more lessons from the Forge.